Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be going over one controller aim tip for pretty much every relevant weapon in Fortnite. Like I've said a few times before, the weapon meta that we currently have in Season 4 is one of the most diverse ones in recent memory. I think it's a good combination of there not really being any weapons that are straight up overpowered, and at the same time, there are a bunch of weapons that are just really well balanced. Because of all that, it's rare that you use the same exact weapons multiple games in a row, so it's probably a good idea to learn how to use almost all of the viable ones in the game. I'm not going to cover every single weapon due to the fact that some of them are either unusably bad like pistols, super easy to use like the SMGs, or like I'm not really sure how I could give a tip for something like an RPG. But for the rest of the weapons, I'll try to keep the tips very simple, relevant, and easy to incorporate into your game just by watching the video, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so we'll start this off by first covering the fully auto ARs, so that would obviously include the white through blue rarity regular ARs, as well as the purple and gold scars. Obviously, for a weapon that's pretty straightforward like this, there really isn't any kind of super secret tip that's gonna suddenly make your aim 10 times better, but let me tell you one of the biggest things that helped my AR aim, and it's a really simple one. Whenever you're shooting at an enemy at medium or even long range with a fully auto AR, don't focus on putting the enemy in the middle of your crosshair. Instead, focus on keeping the little dot in the middle of your crosshair on the enemy. I know that may not really sound like there's any kind of major difference, and it's kind of hard to explain why it works, but here's my guess. Because of the bloom mechanic in Fortnite, the size and even shape of your crosshair is constantly changing whenever you're shooting at an enemy. Each individual bullet you fire makes the crosshair bigger for about half a second, it then contracts back to normal size in between shots, and then that process repeats over and over again as long as you keep shooting. And as if that wasn't enough, any kind of body movement that you do while firing changes the crosshair's size and general shape as well. So because of that, it seems pretty obvious that you don't want to base your aim around something that doesn't have a consistent size. When the crosshair is really big, you may have a solid 60 to 70% of it on your enemy's body, so you'll start firing, but then each time it contracts, you may now only have like 20 to 30% of it on the enemy, which makes it very unlikely for your shots to hit. So by focusing on the small stationary dot in the middle of your crosshair instead, you avoid all of these problems, and I feel like it simplifies aiming with fully auto ARs so much. Now don't get me wrong, keeping that small little dot on the enemy is not going to be a super easy task, and because of bloom there's still a chance you miss even if you have it positioned perfectly in the middle of your enemy's body, but it's still definitely your best bet for hitting as many shots as possible. Next up, we're going to talk about the burst ARs, so that's going to include the white through blue FAMASs and then the purple and gold AUGs. So there's actually an interesting little difference between using the two types of bursts that I don't think a lot of people realize. When you fire any rarity of the FAMAS, even if you're standing totally still, you won't be able to get first shot accuracy on every burst right away. So if you just hold down the trigger, you're only going to get first shot accuracy on the first burst you fire of every clip. However, with either rarity of the AUG, that actually isn't the case. As long as you don't move while firing, you can be standing up or crouching, it doesn't matter, you can just hold down the trigger and each burst you fire will have first shot accuracy on the first bullet. So when you're shooting the AUG, it's really that simple. Make sure you're in a position to where you're not going to have to strafe or crouch spam while shooting, and then just hold down your trigger as if you were firing a regular AR. But for the FAMAS, on the other hand, in longer range situations especially, it's probably worth it to slightly pause between each burst so that your first shot accuracy resets. It isn't going to take a long pause, only about half a second or so, and I think it's definitely worth it in a lot of situations. The next weapon I want to cover, I think technically is in the AR category, the Stark Industry Energy Rifle. This weapon's quickly becoming one of my favorites in the entire game, and it's mainly mainly due to the tip that I'm about to share. We just talked about first shot accuracy with the 2 burst, but the Stark energy rifle takes it a step further. This weapon guarantees you first shot accuracy with every shot, even if you're moving, as you'll see in this clip. So because of that, when you fire this thing, you really want to be strafing or crouching like a madman the entire time. With other weapons, you get penalized for that in the form of more crosshair spread and therefore more bloom, but with this specific weapon, there really aren't any repercussions whatsoever, and I think that's a big reason why you're going to see this gun becoming more and more meta as time goes on. The next weapon that I want to cover is the LMG. This is a weapon that's kind of flown under the radar so far in Season 4, but much like with the Stark Industry Energy Rifle, I think it's incredibly underrated because people don't really know the best way to use it. You basically want to use the LMG like an SMG and barrel stuff enemies with it. The most important stat for barrel stuff weapons is DPS, and the LMG absolutely blows the 2 real SMGs in the game out of the water. The blue LMG does 200 DPS, the blue TAC SMG does 171, and then the blue suppressed SMG does 172. Plus, that doesn't even account for the LMG's massive 100 shot magazine size, which makes it insane for spraying structures as well as enemies. And yeah, the bloom and kick on this weapon is pretty insane, which keeps it balanced, but if you just non-ADS spray at very close range, you don't really even get affected by that at all. It's just such a slept on weapon that you probably see me use in my gameplays fairly frequently. The only slight problem is that they seem to be kinda hard to find in my experience. Now let's move on to some shotgun tips, and we're gonna start with the pump. An interesting little niche tip for the pump is to not be afraid to occasionally ADS in certain situations when using it. Obviously not when the enemy is super close or even when they're just facing you, but if the enemy has their back or side turned to you and they're more than about 4 to 5 meters away, fully ADSing before shooting is gonna really increase your damage potential. I know that sounds simple, but some people get so used to not ADSing at all when using the pump because that's what you're supposed to do at point blank range, that they basically get in the habit of never doing it at all, period. And I just think you're really passing up on a lot of potential damage if you get into that habit. For the charged shotgun, the best tip I can give is this. When you're fully charged or even just charging at all, your ability to move left, right, forward, or backwards is severely impaired because you can't sprint, and in general, your change of direction is just a lot slower as well. So when you're in a 50-50 charged shotgun fight, strafing is much less effective than it is with other weapons. However, your ability to jump is still exactly the same height and same speed as normal. So even though I generally think that strafing is better than jumping in shotgun fights, for the charge I think the opposite is true, so that's something you probably want to get used to doing. Then for the combat shotgun, my biggest tip is because since the weapon has such a small crosshair size, you always want to be moving while non-ADS firing it. Whenever you jump or strafe while not ADSing, it actually makes your weapon's crosshair size a bit larger. Now normally that's a bad thing because it means more pellet spread or just bloom in general if you're talking about an AR, but for the combat it actually helps you because it's just so hard to hit shots with a regular sized crosshair, so making it a little wider is actually beneficial to you. And then as I mentioned before, if you're standing still because the enemy isn't shooting back at you, there's really no reason to not ADS with this weapon because it makes it a lot easier to hit shots. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. I want to know, what is your single favorite weapon right now in Fortnite Season 4? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.